Welcome to my channel MBA Protect. Today I'm going to present you the new design of my 3D printer calculator. So let's get started. This is the first screen of the application. As you can see, it is called MBA Protect 3D printer calculator, and as you can see, there is a bunch of tools you can use to fully calibrate and set up your 3D printer. So we're going to go through the different tools one by one very quickly, just to give you an overview of how it works and what you can do. So here you have the menu with the different tools. You have Extruder Calibration, ZAxis Calibration, flow rate adjustment, filament and print price, motor steps per rotation, belt or screw steps per millimeter. To know more about 3D printing, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. So the first thing I would want to show you is this one, that is to know more about 3D printing, because that's where I have my preferred website or YouTube channels for 3D printing. So let's look at it very quickly. So we have here the list of YouTube channels you can look at to learn more about 3D printing. You have, for example, Crosslink, Maker's Muse, Legura Loco, 3D Print, Scape, Teaching Tech, Le Labo Deluxe, The Edge of Tech, BVRD Brian Vibes, 3D Printing Canada, Cursive Fabrication, One BAM Systems, Autodesk Fusion 360, Naomi, Technivorous, and Chep. So you just click on the button to have access to the YouTube channel. So let's look, for example, the channel of Crosslink. You just click, and here you have access to the channel to the YouTube channel Crosslink. Return, let's look, for example, about Technivorous. Here you have direct access to Technivorous' channel. This is really a very good channel, particularly about the Cura software. Let's look at Chep, for example. Here we have Chep, Check Health Bakes Filament Friday, his channel. So let's look at another one. For example, let's look at The Edge of Tech. You can also have access to the Labo Deluxe, which is in French. Labo Deluxe, very interesting channel about 3D printing, but it's in French. Okay, for those who want to have access, it's in French. So this is a list of channels you can access from this screen. Okay, let's look at the other tools. For example, the first one here is the Extruder Calibration. Here you have two ways of calibration. You have the first method, that is free air method, and the second method is with the heated extruder method. For example, if I want to use free air method, I just click on the number 1. I click on 1 and I have access to free air method extruder setup. For example, here, let's tap here 81 and lens extruded. For example, after measuring, I noted that it has extruded 98 millimeters, and I press on the button calculate here. When I press here, I have the results. The result is I have an under extrusion by -2%, and the adjusted each step is 82.6. Okay, let's go back to the other method, that is the number 2, the heat extruder method. When I click on 2, I have access to this page, to this screen. The current step I put, for example, 81. The length of sample must be 100 or more. Okay, I can choose 100 or more. Suppose I choose, for example, 120. The length to extrude is 100. Now, after extrusion, when I measure the part left, for example, if I measure 21 millimeters left, when I press calculate, it shows that the length extruded is 99 millimeters. That is, there is an extrusion by -1%, and the new step, the adjusted step, is 81.8. This is for the extruder calibration. Now let's look at the XYZ axis calibration. For example, here I put for the steps per millimeter, for example, 93 steps per millimeter. Desired length, for example, I want to print 20 millimeters, and after printing I noticed that I have when I measure the printing, I've noticed that it has printed 19.75 millimeters. So when I calculate, the difference is 0.25, and it tells me to increase the current step. The adjustment factor is 1.01, and the adjusted step is 94.1. Now suppose I still have 93 steps per millimeter, desired length 20. Now after measuring, it has printed 20.94, for example, millimeters. When I calculate, it says the difference -0.94. It asks me to decrease the step because we have an adjustment factor of 0.9, and that adjusted step is 88.8. Now suppose I still have 93 here, desired length 20, and when I measure it as 20, it has printed 20. When I calculate, it says your measures are exact, no adjustment is required. And this is for the adjustment of the ZY axis. Suppose, for example, I have 400 for the steps per millimeter, desired length, let's say 50, printed length, let's say 49.7. The new step is 42.4. So this is for the XYZ axis calibration. Now let's look at the flow rate adjustment. Suppose I want to print with a wall thickness of 0.4, the number of measures, let's say just one measurement, and I click on OK, and I press on OK after this number, OK. Now it asks me to enter the value I have measured after printing, let's say, for example, 0.5. I press OK, and then I press on calculate. So here we have an average of 0.5. New flow rate is 80. Suppose I have a wall thickness of 1 millimeter, and let's say 2 measures. I press on OK. Ask me value number 1. Let's say 0.98 for value number 1. For value number 2, let's say 0.78. OK. I calculate. The average is 0.88 millimeters, and the new flow rate is 113.6. This is for the calculation of the flow rate, the calibration of the flow rate. Now here I have the button see my filaments flow rate. This is this helps me store all my information about my filaments. For example, here I have my black filaments, and with the flow rate 60.69 at 96.5 for the E step. So the E step does not change because that's the same printer, but for each filaments I have the flow rate. For the blue filament it's 64.52, for the white filament 73, and for the yellow filament 79. And I can add others. For example, suppose I want to add the flow rate for my red filament, for example, I just can add it here. Let's say red flow rate, let's say 85, and the E step is 96.5. Now after I just click on the button save here, and I have it saved. If I return to the previous screen, when I come back, you will see that the red filament and the information about the red filament is still here. Still, if I want to remove it, I just click here and erase it. I erase everything. Then I press save here. If I go back, when I come back here, now it is removed. So this is just in order to save all the information about my filaments, about the flow rate, particularly the flow rate and the steps, etc. Now let's look at the filament and print price. Here we have calculate print price. So first thing, when you install the application, at the very beginning you have the default values that are stored in the database. So first, if you want to change those values, you can just click on filament and price setup here. Let's click on filament and price, and here you have all the information you need. Here you can choose the currency. Here these are the default values when you install the application, but you can change them. For example, here I can choose the currency by clicking here on choose currency, and I have for the moment I have just these values in the list. I can change them after. So suppose I choose US dollars here. I press US dollar, and then the price per meter I can change it if I want. Also, let's say $5 per meter. Oh, that's too much. Okay, that's just an example. And then also for the filaments, I have the density of the filaments, different types of densities. Here are the default values. If you can change the density, if it's not the correct number, you can change them. And then you just click after validate, and it is saved. If you come back here, you see choose currency, the currency is still here, and the price per meter. So I would choose, for example, here I don't know the price per meter for the filament in US dollar. My local currency is the CFA friend, or West African. And then here I know from the calculation I've done that the price per meter is about 196. Then I click on validate, and it is saved. Now I have stored all the information, the currency, the price, the PLA, density, extra. Now I can calculate, for example, the print price here. I click on print price. Here you have the currency that appears, and you have the price per meter for the filament. Now choose the criterion. Here I have to choose whether I calculate the price on the basis of the weight or on the basis of the length. I just click on choose criterion here, and then you have length or weight. Suppose we choose the length here in meters. Now I need to give the length in meters. For example, suppose my printing requires, let's say, 24 meters. The diameter of the filament is 1.75, the filament type I can choose in the list, and here for example I choose PLA, and here when I choose PLA the density is given automatically. Suppose if I change here and put ABS, you see the density 1.04, but we keep PLA with the density of 124, and then I press on calculate. When I press on calculate, you have the weight that is calculated, that is 71.5 grams, and the amount to pay in CFA, that is the currency of the local currency, 14,029. So this is for the calculation of the, I have calculated the price on the base of the length. I can change the criteria. Suppose if I choose the weight, for example my printing requires let's say 125 grams, the diameter is 1.75, the filament type I choose PLA, and when I press calculate, the length is calculated, that is 41.9 meters, and the amount to pay is 8,214 in the local currency. So this is for the calculation of the print price. Now calculate the filament left. Suppose I have my filament spool. Now I want to know how long is the remaining part on the spool. I can calculate using this tool. Now the first thing information to have is the weight of the empty spool. Okay, you have to know the weight of the empty spool. Suppose here the empty spool is 245 grams. Now I give the weight the weight of the spool with the filaments. Suppose my spool with the filament is, let's say, 846 grams. I choose the filament type, let's say PLA. The diameter of the filament, let's say 1.75, and when I calculate on the basis of this information, I have on my spool 201 meters left, 201 meters of filament left based on the information. Now suppose instead of 245, my empty spool weighs, let's say, 275 grams. When I change it, so here I'm asking if I want to store this new value. If I click yes, the new value is stored. Now the weight of the spool with the filament, let's say 765, filament types PLA, diameter 1.75. When I press calculate, I have 164 meters left on my spool. Everything depends on the weight of the empty spool and the type of filament, the density, and so on. All the information you need to give in either weight of the empty spool and the weight of the spool with the filament, and then you can calculate approximately the length of filament left on the spool. Okay, now let's look at the motor steps per rotation. If you want to know the motor steps per rotation, you can calculate. For example, here my motor step is let's say 1.8 degrees, and when I press calculate, it's 200 steps per rotation. If it's 1.6 degrees, the steps per rotation is 225 steps per rotation. This can be useful. Now the belt or screw steps per millimeter. Here I am asked to choose first the transmission method. When I click on choose, I choose whether either belt or screw. Suppose I choose the belt. Now I can give the steps per rotation And as you can see here, if you don't know the steps for rotation, you can calculate, or if you have worked, and you can calculate by pressing on this symbol here. For example, let's press here. I have the calculation tool. For example, it's 1.8 degrees. When I calculate, it's 200 steps per rotation. Now I can go back to my screen and then put here the steps per rotation, that is 200. The mathematical step, let's say 16. Belt step 2 millimeters, and the number of geocuts, let's say 20. When I calculate, the calculated step is 80. Now if I choose, for example, screw, I put the steps per rotation 200, micro step 16, screw step, let's say 8 millimeters, and when I press calculate, I have 400 for steps per millimeter for this axis. Okay, the last screen to show is about the apps, MBA Protect. So this is the about screen for this application. So, and of course, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel to be informed of my future videos and posts. Just click here and then you have access to my YouTube channel for registration. Okay, as you can see, it's a very useful calculator with all these tools that can help you calibrate your 3D printer. Do not hesitate to download. You can download it from my YouTube channel. It's free, and do not hesitate to tell me your suggestions or kind of idea that can help me improve this application. Thank you very much.